That's St. Anthony. But now look, that tabernacle there.
Tabernacle. No, I don't know.
That's that gold.
The gold thing in the center?
Yeah. That is probably worth $4,000 or $5,000.
So what is a tabernacle?
The gold. That's where they keep the hosts in the tabernacle.
Okay.
And not like.
We didn't have the camera set up, but you were mentioning that you were baptized here.
And confirmed here.
And confirmed here, but this is the second church. It wasn't actually, this wasn't the original one here. The original one had burnt down. Okay.
We were Pete and I were the first boys that was baptized with Father Mowers in 1924, and Helen Bishop was the first girl that was baptized in 24, I'm told.
So something that, I don't know much about the Catholic religion, but something that has been mentioned is names days, the celebration of names days.
Oh yeah, we all celebrated names day. St. Nicholas and Frank and Balzer and Cho, they all celebrated names days.
So how would you celebrate names?
Big parties. You sometimes, if you had room, you took the furniture out of the front room and you hired a $2, $3 accordion player, and you danced, and you had 190, a big supper or lunch. Yeah.
So when was your name? What's your name?
Nicholas, St. Nicholas, December 6th.
December 6th.
And we celebrated big. Sometimes we had 30 people at the house. Moved all the furniture out and had the accordionist had a chair on top of the table, and he played the accordion.
So is that something that you would do instead of a birthday? Or?
They celebrated names days sooner than birthdays.
Okay.
Very few birthdays celebrated at the time.
What about your brother Peter and Michael? Did they have names
Oh
days
yeah.
as well?
Oh yeah. We used to go down to Harvey, Pete's names day. They'd come up, and then we'd play cards and have beer and whiskey and talk.
What type of card games did you play?
Pinochle. We had so many people one time. We had 6, 8 card tables going. And the one card table was set up like here, and the vanity was on the other side. And the gal that was sitting there, she held her hands, her cards, and her partner on this side, through the mirror, he could read. And they couldn't figure out, they won all the games. And finally somebody caught on that on the guy on this side, the reflection showed the cards. Yeah.
So what about the beer well, obviously the 190 you made, or family members made, but beer, was that homemade?
We made beer, homemade beer.
How do you make homemade beer?
You bought the malt, and you put in rice and sugar, and that was good beer. That was body, that had body to it, no light stuff. And then you if it didn't bubble no more, and then you put it in bottles and capped it. Same thing with wine. I think we had our last wine that we made in 84 was drank here not so long ago. We used to make wine, and after it was fermented, we put it in 5-gallon wooden kegs, and then you had a little pipe that went into the keg, and a glass full of water, and a ball. And as it kept on releasing the gas, the ball would lift to let the gas out so the keg wouldn't bust. And when it quit, when the ball wasn't up no more, then you could tap it or bottle it.
Really? I've never heard of that.
We have all kinds of tricks and trades.
Okay, so
Deals.
if you think back when you were a child, how has the religious practices changed over the years?
Okay. What was a sin back when we grew up was no more sins. You couldn't eat meat on Friday, and now you can eat meat. Everything was in Latin. The priest stood in the altar with his back to you. Now he stands here and looks at you.
Really?
Really.
He used to stand with his back too.
All the time. And everything in Latin. Yeah.
So
No.
everything was in Latin. Did they do anything in German?
But then he
or-
would have 1.5 hour sermon in German and 1.5 hour in English. You got your money's worth.
So how long would you be in church on a Sunday morning?
Hour and a half, 2.
Okay.
And then they had what they call confession. And that's the confessional back there. You go in and you tell the priest your sins. And if he heard a lot of confessions, church was supposed to start at 10 o'clock. Probably didn't start until 5 minutes to 12. They were all in there telling them.
So where would people sit? I mean, did they have seating like
Okay.
men and women or?
When we first got married, it was still that way. The custom was the women would sit on that side and the men on this side.
And the kids up front.
And the kids up front.
Oh, they were up front.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then later on,
Except the way little ones that.
they decided that what the heck, the dad owns as much as the kids as the mother. Why don't he help take care of the kids? So they start sitting together in families. But for a long time, it was segregated. The women on that side and the men on this
So when
side.
they did kids, would that be the same thing? Girls,
Mm-hmm.
little girls, little boys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So did they have? Again, I don't know much, but like Sunday schools or like youth
Oh, yeah.
activities. What were those like when you were growing up?
Ann and I both taught religious class. We had 5, 6 curtains, rooms made down in the basement. And then you had I usually taught the 7th grade religion class. And then that too changed as time went on. It was always God. Pretty soon I got a catechism book, instructions. Yahweh. Well, who in the heck is Yahweh? But actually, if you study the Bible, God was called Yahweh at one time. So things change, yeah.
So how often did you get a new priest? Was it somebody that was here for?
Father Maurus come here in 1924, and he left in, well, I'm not sure. It'll be in that there, if I give it to you.
You mentioned, we looked at a picture of yours and Pete's First Communion. What was that like? What was First Communion like?
Okay, you had to know that much catechism, and this is a sin, and that's a sin, and that's a sin. And then you had to go, if you had any of them sins that they taught you, then you had to go to confession, tell the priest that you think you had this sin or that sin, and then he forgave you, and then you received the host.
So was there a celebration, a family celebration
Big,
after a
yep.
child's First
That
Communion?
to this day, our Tyler, he was just confirmed, and we couldn't make it down to Grand Forks, but we had other doings. But they had all the family comes in when confirmation or communion. Well, now we had to wait until we were out of the 8th grade before we could get confirmed back then. Now they confirm you with, I think Tyler made his first communion and confirmation at the same time, right? All them laws are changed, I mean.
What did you wear when you were a child to church? What was the typical outfit that you would wear?
It seems like everybody had a suit and a white shirt, and they were just safe for church.
And would the women wear?
Women all wore dresses, absolutely dresses. And they didn't dare come into church without a hat,
Really?
really. Now they,
I like hats. They're fun.
yeah, but there it was, come Easter Sunday. Did you see what kind of hat she was wearing? Did you see what kind of hat she was wearing?
So what do people wear to church now? Has there been a change in what you see the congregation wearing?
Unbelievable, unbelievable. You wouldn't think of coming in blue jeans or slacks, and now, if you didn't have a coat on, you wasn't supposed to come to church, even when it was hot. You sweated out. Now, I mean, nobody ever dared come with a tank or whatever you call it, ladies. There's a story on that. Priest was distributing communion, and pretty soon here comes this young gal, real low-cut dress, and when you give the communion, he says, "Body of Christ," and then you say, "Amen." And when she got closer, he looked up and he says, "Christ, what a body."
You're full of those, aren't you?
I got a lot of them. Well, you want to go out to the cemetery?
I think we shall. Schall, right here. Margaret.
Yeah,
Margaret,
that's my godmother, yeah.
That's your godmother?
Yeah, she was my godmother.
See, now this has come out too, you told come out.
I was going to bring a screw out and have it put in there. But now, these here aren't as popular as those over there.
The actual iron.
Those are
The
more... If we go over here, that's where my folks are. And I mean to tell you, I cried.
So how did they?
That was
How did they?
Elizabeth, and that was my dad. Okay, my dad's got a cement vault, but mother at that time, when she died in '42, was just a pine box.
Really? So she was buried.
See, and you'll notice, Ma died in '42, so when Dad died, Pete and I says, well, we should do at least the same thing as Dad did for Ma. So I wrote the certain, what do you call them?
Eulogy?
Memorial.
His name, she mean, or whatever.
This where they make them stones. I called one company and wrote, and I said that we got this and this, and I'd like to do the same thing for my dad. And he said, come, take a paper and take a print off it on paper with chalk and send it to me. I send it to him. You look, one like the other.
You look exactly the same.
Yeah. The only thing, I didn't do that. This one is glazed in the back, and this one is rough. So they got a little bit more money out of that one than they did out of this one, I think. St. Anselm's Friedhof. You got to take that from the other side.
Yes, I will.
That's backwards from
I will
in
take
here.
it from the other side.
That's what it says, St.
So
Anselm's.
how would they do how did they bury people back then? Because now, they have machinery that
Okay.
can dig the...
By hand?
They had a deal, a post here and a post there and a post there and a post there, it's set. And then they had letter straps and a crank. And they cranked it, and it went down, 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 down. The holes were all dug by hand. All dug by hand.
So
I dug many a grave by hand.
What time of year did your...
November.
November? So
Yeah.
was the ground pretty frozen at that
Yeah.
time? So did you have to help dig it?
When Dad, they haven't got the day on there. 1905, she was born, she died November 5th. Died November 2nd, 42, and was buried November 5th. Okay, they got the same thing on Dad. These over here are all the babies.
Do you have any other relatives buried out here? Or?
No, well, there's some more Schalls back there in Hammonds.
Oh, okay.
This got painted, this statue.
So is this something that is in every Catholic
Grotto.
cemetery?
Grotto, yeah.
Grotto?
Yeah.
That looks yucky.
And what is the...
That's supposed to be the Blessed Virgin Mary, and and this here is supposed to be St. Anselm.
Saint
Anselm.
Anselm?
The
Oh,
one
the
that
name
names
of the... And what is he, Saint Anselm, what does he signify? Like,
He was a farmer, and then he turned out to be a disciple with church or something.
so very fitting to be out in the country church.
Rural.
Matilda Schall?
Matilda, yeah, that was N.A. Schall's little. Yeah, she died as a baby. Okay, that's what I plan on getting for Braylon. These, now, you don't find any other place that got more iron crosses than you do here at St. Anselm's. Now this here
That's Jaeger, huh?
is a little Jaeger. Yeah, now this is different. I have never paid attention. Huh?
Oh, son of Leonard Small.
Yeah. Now this here guy made a number of them. That was made by this individual. He was a Gerger. See, but what happens, it wears out. Another story I can tell you. There's a Bloggerud, black. He committed suicide. And the Catholic Church, if you commit suicide, you can't get buried in the cemetery. Of course, they changed their mind on that too now. The laws changed. But was it God's will? When they extended the cemetery, he got in the inside. So now he's in the inside. Huh? I don't know. There. Yeah, that's a native flower. You don't find them. Get the county agent out here, I'll go excite it. Is that wood or metal? Is there? See, some people didn't have money, so that's just two pieces of iron bolted together or something.
Yeah. It's just metal.
But then if you stop and think, money was scarce. Take that there big, at that time, that was a lot of money. And then here's what happens, some they fall off. Oh, that is a tookshare, by the way.
So with the church closing, does anybody actually care for this now, or is it just kind of?
Well, let's run down to the farm.
Sounds good.
2.5 miles south. German school number 4. 1, 2, no, German school number 2. And he bought it and made a shop out of it.
Okay.
And that there barn was built by Florian Axman, Anstead. And then Dwayne tried buying it from Andrew. I never did find out what he paid for it, but anyway, he bought it and then they moved it here from over at the farm, 7 miles from the farm over here. And the pole barn I had put there. And that's where the one well is, and over there is where the other well is, where the hoses are. They're both hooked together. And the pheasants, they're over in the roosting there, I see. Yeah. He raises either 100 or 150. I'm not even sure what he's got this year. Carlotta, she's the artist. She made that there drawing, and she's got one sitting over there that used to be on the barn. The house is pretty much the way it was when we left it. Except I think they put different siding on it. We had an awful lot of snow, and we had a pit silo, and it would cover up completely. And as you can see on the picture, that's the way it covered up. You had to shovel out a hole to get in there.
Who's in the picture?
It's me and the dog, I think. Yeah, me and the dog.
And
Oh.
then this one here.
That's the same thing, only you can see how high the snow is. The barn is back there, and the dog is sitting on top of the snowbank. In fact, we had the Fifth Army out there, and they bulldozed out as high as 15 feet of snow
Really?
out of the yard.
So, when you would have that much snow, what would you do when somebody couldn't come out and bulldoze it? I mean, you obviously couldn't shovel your way out.
We had teams, and now this is where a lot of people can't realize how this was done. You start making a track with a sled and a team of horses. So every time you drove, they'd pack the snow. Pretty soon you'd have a solid track, and as the snow would get higher, that track would be there. You could always follow that track. Then come around March, when the snow started melting, you probably were driving 3-4 feet high on a track of snow, and then pretty soon the snow melted, and then you had to use trailers or something like that. Otherwise you used sleds.
So did you ever experience a blizzard when you were a kid?
Bad ones, bad ones. Went down to Smoky Lake one time in March to get hay, a beautiful day. And all of a sudden it starts snowing. All of a sudden it started blowing. And I got on the hay rack, half loaded, going to go home. And I wanted to go home, and every time I pulled on the reins, the horses to turn, they wanted to go the other way. And then we went around in circles, and finally I thought to myself, well, if you didn't think you know better than I do, go ahead. And they took me home.
Really?
Really. Horses were that smart. They'd always go. And here you can see on this one, that's that school bus that I talk about. Here's the stack, the chimney on the school bus, and this is all snow. And that bus was about 5 feet high, the stack higher, and that's how much snow we'd get at one storm. Then you'd have to shovel out to get there with a team of horses. Then they'd pull it out on top, and then you'd go again.
So how long did you drive bus?
School bus?
Yeah.
I drove school bus for 14 years.
Okay.
That's another interesting thing. I got married in 47. In 47, I become clerk on the school board. Then Diane was born in 50. Diane went to the same school as I did for 3 years. We reorganized in 59 to Rugby School District. Diane, when she went to Rugby then, she could talk better German than English as a little girl at that time. Yeah. I hired school teachers, and I got contracts in there to show you, copies of them. They taught school for 8 months, got $210 a month. They had to do their own janitor work and teach all 8 grades.
So you went to a one-room schoolhouse then yourself?
One-room schoolhouse, yeah.
What was that like for you?
We had 21 boys and a lady for a school teacher. She liked them all.
You didn't have any girls in class?
Not a one girl.
Oh my goodness. Were you guys rowdy?
21 boys. Later on, as we got older, when we got up to the 6th, 7th, 8th grades, there were some girls coming. Hammonds had some girls. Snibels had a few girls. But at one time it was, Bessie Fossum was the school teacher, and it was all boys.
So did you have the same school teacher for the 8 years you attended, or did they switch?
School teacher, just about different school teacher every year. I got all my report cards from grade 1 to the 8th grade.
Really?
Really.
Oh my goodness. So were you a good student?
Yep.
What was your favorite subject?
History, and then arithmetic. History. I always dreamt about going to Germany someday, and I had the opportunity and never did go. I chickened out.
So, you talk about, having 8 grades in one classroom. How was it set up? Like,
Okay, she'd have 10 or 15 minutes on this grade and 10 or 15 minutes on that grade. And kids going to school at that time, they learned a lot. If you were interested, like, not being Diane was my daughter, but she was only in the 3rd grade, and they had phonics in the 3rd grade when she was in the 2nd grade, and the school teacher said one day they pronounced cucumber, and Diane was in the 2nd grade, and she wanted the 3rd graders to pronounce cucumbers, and Diane says, cucumber. Here's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Here's the silo again. Here's the windmill. Can you see? Here's the windmill. This was shoveled out. The water tank is down in there somewhere. A hole made so the horses and the cattle could come in and drink.
What year was this in?
4950. Okay, that's that same silo picture.
Okay.
And this is the water
So you
tank.
said a pit silo? What is a pit silo?
Okay, you made a pit. Okay, I'd say it was probably 8, 10, 12 feet wide in the dirt.
Okay, you actually dug it into.
Yeah,
Okay.
you slanted the wall so it wouldn't cave in. You made slanty,
Okay.
wider in top and narrower in the bottom. And then you had a corn cutter that chopped the corn into a box, wagon box, either truck, and then you had wire netting on there. And you'd drive into this pit silo or back down in there, and then you'd put a chain on that wire, and that would unload it. It would lift it up and unload it. And then you'd pack it. You keep on packing, packing, packing until the pit was full, or until you run out of corn. And then we had 14 and 16 foot telephone poles. And every 8, 10 feet, you laid a telephone pole across the pit silo. Okay, there's the pit silo. You lay telephone poles across like this with wire mesh and put straw on there.
Okay.
And it was warmer in there than it was outside,
Really?
really.
Huh. So you also talked about, for the water and having to carry it in from the well. Did you guys actually dig your own wells?
No, they had well drillers at that time. Our well is 90 feet deep, and we always had ample water. Until Dwayne took over, and he went from 30, 40 cows to 129 stock cows and 60 milk cows. We run out of water. Didn't have enough water in that well. Then he dug another well, and with the new system now, they're all hooked together, and the
But the original one is still
original one is still pumping water.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. So
This barn was over at her place, and then Dwayne got it from Andrew. Also haul gravel, Pierce County. This is the gravel truck I own. 7-yard trucks. Pierce County gravel haulers. Bought the truck in 75, and I hauled gravel until 84, was it? 75? 87. Till 87, yeah.
So is this you in the picture?
Yep. And then we all had what they called slide-in cattle racks. You opened the end gate, you slid that in, and hauled, at the most, 2, 3 head of cattle.
Slide in cattle
Cattle rack
rack.
on that there pickup.
So how many head of cattle did you have when you were growing up?
When we were growing up, between 30, 40.
Really, that many?
That's a swatter.
Okay. Swatter?
Swather, yeah.
Swath. Okay.
And that's the corn set I built. You'll see that when we go out there. If you want it, I don't know.
So when you were growing up, the cattle that you had, were they dairy cattle or were they used for meat?
Both.
Both?
Yeah. This here is the old style cockshot swatter with the B John Deere swatting back. I don't know whether that's history or not. And oh, that's the old Massey combine. Here, and we don't, that's not the one I donated. That was the one before we got that one. But here, this is what they call a hay stacker. And then you had a bull rake. You had 2 horses, and then there was a rake, teeth that went on the ground like this. And then you had a seat in the back that you could sit on and lift them, and then the horses would pull it. And then you'd fill that up with hay. You'd rake it and you fill it up with hay. Then you'd bring it in, and this is what they called a hay stacker. So that had the same thing, a bunch of teeth. You drove that bull rake onto them teeth, and then you put that, it don't show here, in front, and then you had a cable up there that rolled it back, lifted it, and dumped it in back, and that stacked hay before we had farm hands. And then that's me here with the manure spreader and the G John Deere, that loader.
G John Deere?
G John Deere, yeah. This is the other combine. This was to be a 26 Massey, and then I bought the 82. And of course, we decided, Dad and I were going to buy a combine. Come to town, and well, there was a choice between an Allis-Chalmer and a Case. So we looked at the Allis-Chalmer, we looked at the Case, and finally, the Allis-Chalmer was a little bit cheaper. Dad says, we'll buy the Allis-Chalmer. Bought the Allis-Chalmer. Him and I were both together, bought the thing, and they brought it home, and we bought the cockshot swatter and swatted it, went out combining. Left-hand pickup. So we had to go in the center of the field and pick up from the inside out. So we both learned.
So up here, what's this up here?
That is the other combine. That was a 26 Massey.
Okay.
That's an old, real old machine. Well, they had, these were some of the first ones that really, after that little grasshopper you're seeing downstairs, they come out then after that little grasshopper.
So who's this here?
That's me on the horse. That's where that
horse.
horse picture come from. And this was my first car, new car that I
Really?
bought, 1964.
1964.
That was the first new car. 1950 I bought a new pickup. Well, they don't make any difference.
So then, are these photographs from the farm, like the cow and
This is
geese, or
happens to be the bull.
the bull?
Yeah, and
Was
if
that
you
from your farm?
yep, and if you look, you can see the bull ring right there.
Let's see. Oh yeah, you can, huh?
Yeah, and then if he was in the corral and you wanted to move him, and then you reached in with that thing, and the ring was there, and you hooked that hook, and you let him around wherever you wanted.
So was he a friendly bull?
Yep, yep. The Holsteins were about the brown Swiss and the Holsteins, I think they were about the meanest.
What kind of cows did you have when you were growing up?
Cattle?
Yeah.
Well, we had Register Herefords, but most of them were mixed. I mean,
Okay. And then are these geese? Is that what they are?
yeah,
Or-
I raised 1 year, I raised 74 ducks and geese.
Really?
Really.
Did you raise them for just food, or?
Well, Mother, we sell them too. Mother had died, and then Grandma, she insisted that I raise geese for feathers,
For
feather ticks.
oh, really? So how
So-
do they make a feather tick?
Okay, so I raise geese, and now the geese will tell you when it's time to pick them. Okay, when they start picking themselves, and then you've got to pick the feathers. And then you put them in a sack and hang them out. And so once in a while there is a little bit of blood or a little bit of matter in the core of the feather. And so that's why you hang them up and dry them. And then you make feather ticks or feather pillows.
So for when you were growing up, is that what you used for bedding at night?
What we used before we got the feather ticks, you'd plant corn. And then you'd go out and the fall of the year when it was ready with a team of horses, nose baskets on the horses so they wouldn't need to pull the corn out of the stalks. And they'd walk down the row all by themselves and you'd husk the corn by hand. You'd throw it in the box, you'd take it home and unload it. And then a nice fall day evening, you'd go out, you'd take a cob of corn and you'd take off the outside leaves. Then the inside leaves, then they made corn blankets and mattresses. And when you turn around in bed or with the blanket, she'd rattle.
So did it actually keep you warm? I mean,
Absolutely,
really?
nice and warm. And later on then, like Ann said, it would bunch up, but later on they got sewing machines and they could add a better traddle on there. They could lift that up and then they'd sew circles or squares and then the husk would stay. They wouldn't bunch up.
Oh, so you could actually have them in there. So your brothers, did you each have your own bed or did you share a bed when you were growing up?
All three in one bed.
All three in one bed?
No, we slept side by side, all three of us. Well, up until, how old were we? I'd say we were going to school already. This, I don't know. That's Dwayne. When they got first married, the first years they were married with the two kids. And
This is the one that is on the farm? Or
the son out the
Yeah.
farm. He's out in the farm.
okay.
And this was, that's when we went to California. That's Mikey's only daughter was Kathy. I said, you're going to make queen someday. And then when she, in high school, she got to be the queen,
Oh, the
whatever they call it.
the prom or homecoming.
Prom, homecoming, whatever.
Oh.
That's Beth. Whatever, they were all Dwayne's. That's his family, the 4 kids.
So did they all stay? Are they all in rugby still, or did they? Places?
Dustin, he's assistant manager with Caterpillar down here in Minot. And Travis, he works for, not Baker Electric, Vivendry Electric. And Mandy, she is down in Devil's Lake, social service.
Okay.
And Beth, the youngest one, she's an RN. She just graduated RN. They always cost Grandpa money. That's Mandy. That's Beth again. That's the youngest one. Love them all. Love them all.
And you have, what did you say, 6 or?
6 grandchildren
one?
and 2 greats.
Tell us about the sheep story.
Okay, we bought the Model A, 1929 Model A, but I think it was in 30 when we went down to Selfridge, North Dakota, and my uncle had a big ranch. He had sheep, raised pigs, and that was something I never knew before either. He'd seed or plant 40, 50, 60, 80 acres of corn and turn the mothers loose into that cornfield, and they'd actually raise the pigs during the summer months or in the fall. But getting back to the sheep, we drove down to Selfridge with the Model A, and when we got down there, Uncle Jack Becker, he just had a mother sheep that had 3 lambs, and we begged him for sheep, and he didn't say anything. And then we were just about ready to go home. Finally, he says, well, you go over and pick one out of the 3. So we went over and picked one out, and left. About halfway home, the little guy pooped. And I says, Pa, Ma, olives, olives.
Like olives, you know.
I thought they were olives. I never knew that. We never had sheep before that they laid little round balls.
Left to right, this is you,
Me,
Mike, and Pete. Okay, is it Mike or is it Michael?
Michael, but
And then Peter?
it's
Okay.
actually Nicholas. I'm actually baptized Nicholas.
Okay.
In
Just
1962, I bought a new combine and I built a new Quonset. I wouldn't buy a combine until I could afford to build a Quonset to shed it. And I take it home every night and put it in the Quonset. So when we quit using it, Hawk Museum said they want it. They didn't have no room out here at our museum here in Rugby. So Hawk Museum took it up there and they got it in a building. And I had to sign papers that it's theirs. And I got they gave me a nice tax write-off.
your brother's wedding.
That's Pete, my brother. He got married in Harvey, and he got married to Catherine Dosh. Had a big family.
How old were you when he got married?
He got married a year after us. So we got married when we were 23. He must have been about 24 years old.
Okay.
And I happen to be best man. I can prove it. I'm right here.
You were the best man, okay. So in this picture, if we were going to identify the people in this picture.
First would be me. And then that she was a Hofford. What was her name?
Well, if we know that you're on the left and we know the bride and groom are Pete and Catherine.
And the other one on the other end is Catherine Junt here. Now that's Grandpa, Grandma Kuntz.
Okay, let's make sure I get this on here. Good. Okay, Grandpa and Grandma.
Kuntz. Kuntz.
And what's their first names?
Mike and Gertrude. Okay, first was Aunt Marie.
And what's the last name?
Arnold. And then, now shall we go this way?
Let's go the standing.
Okay. Then that was Uncle Pete.
Uncle Pete?
Yeah.
Is it Pete or Peter?
Well, they called him Pete, but it's Peter.
It's Peter. And
actually,
his last name, is it
Kuntz?
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then was my mother, Elizabeth Schall.
Okay.
And then there was Catherine.
Catherine?
Yeah.
With a K?
Kathryn. Catherine.
R-Y-N. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. And what's her last name? Catherine.
She died.
Okay.
And this was Michael. Mike.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then Sydney.
And this was Anita.
The little girl.
And the next was Paul.
In the middle, or the adults are
That is Grandpa Michael, and that's Gertrude. Here's the thing. My mom always said, being poor is not a shame. Being dirty is. You can be clean.
That's a good one. That is
My mother always said that.
So your grandma, Catherine, what's her maiden name?
She was,
Okay.
after Uselman. She was a Stefan, and the other one got married to Uselman. Here's a true story, too. Dad and Mom come home with the Model A one time, and they unloaded the groceries, and then we had a shed where we drive that Model A in. And Dad went out. Ich was nicht. Everything is dead. He don't know. Everything is dead. We opened up the hood, and here there was no battery. Dad says, "Was Gottes Wille?" Well, he says, "Go get a horse and ride." We went through that cornfield. There were no roads. We went through that cornfield, and maybe she broke out, fell out of there. Pretty soon, here lays the battery in 100 pieces. I went home and I says, "Yeah, it's laying out there. It's not, busted all to pieces." So we had to go to town with the neighbor and get a battery But the Model A's run on generators. It's not like the new cars. And as long as the generator was running, it kept the car going.
Really?
Yeah,
Huh.
that's how that went.
So, what were some of these German sayings that you grew up with?
Du machst mir viel Schmerzen, weißt nicht, wie gut ich dir bin. Ja, 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 weißt nicht, wie gut ich dir bin.
Okay, what, I don't know German,
You,
so.
you, I love you with all my heart. You will never know how good I am to you. Now where I'm at. Du liebst mir von Herzen, du machst mir viel Schmerzen. Du weißt nicht, wie gut ich dir bin. Ja, ja, okay, that's it.
So it's kind of like a
A
little
love song.
love song.
A little love, yeah. Now this is, you don't find them that often. True story on this. Back in the dirty 30s, everybody was poor, and Catholic Church wanted them to have a picture of the Blessed Virgin Mary and Sacred Heart of Jesus. That's the mother of, you Catholic? You know anything about?
I do not know anything.
Okay.
About
The Blessed Virgin Mary is the mother of God, and Jesus was God. Okay. So, and they had a picture of, this is my great-great-grandma and great-great-grandpa. And so there was no money, and they decided to, it was the priest's wishes, that they put the Blessed Virgin Mary picture in front of her and the Sacred Heart picture of Jesus in front of him. And then hang up these pictures,
oh my
praying for rain and all this and that. So time went on. Pretty soon, they somebody asked the family to see the picture of their grandparents. That would have been Uncle Simon or Uncle August. Yeah, they can't find it. They remember they had this picture, but nobody can remember. Then when Richard, that's Simon's son now, went to the service, he wanted a picture of the Blessed Virgin and the Sacred Heart of Jesus for protection, being he was in the service. So they went and took these pictures out. Was Gottes Wille. Here's great-grandma. And they took this other out, the Sacred Heart of Jesus out. Was Gottes Wille. Here's great-grandpa. They found them behind
the
other pictures that they put in.
Did these two live in Russia, or did they ever come to the U.S.?
Nope.
They only in Russia?
Strictly in Russia.
Were they the ones that immigrated from Germany to Russia, or is that still getting...
They were they went from Germany down to Russia.
Okay. Do you know where at in Germany that they lived before they moved to Russia?
Mannheim. And then my grandpa, then Wendell and Schall, that would have been their son, he and that Vetch, there's an article in there, if you take it home, over there you can read it.
Okay.
The war broke out, and they didn't want to serve in the war. So they decided that they were in the service, but they got a 30 or 40 day furlough, and they decided to run away, which they did. And then they had you read that, then they had to pay so many rubles to this guy to take him to this border and that and that and that, and finally they made it back to the United States.
So was Wendelin, your grandfather, was he alive when they immigrated to Russia, or was he born in Russia?
He was alive in Russia.
He was born in, okay.
They were Germans. These were Germans. They migrated from Germany down to Russia. And then
Your
grandfather was born there.
Okay.
Okay, this is a picture of my dad and mother.
That's what we want.
Good picture.
That's what we're looking. Oh, that's perfect. The way you're holding it
Oh,
comes up
okay.
perfect. Yeah. Do you want to hold it there for just a moment?
No
It's
problem.
like perfect on the camera. Okay, this is.
My dad, Nick
Your-
W., Schall, and Elizabeth.
Is it Nicholas still? Like,
Nicholas,
okay.
yeah.
W.
W.
Okay.
That's Swindlin.
Oh,
the W.
really? Okay. I'm gonna actually put that here. And then your mom.
Elizabeth Kuntz Schall.
And you know what year they were married?
23. We were born in 24.
So you were their wedding present.
Yep. Year after, though.
Yes. But that's a great way, bringing in twins. And this is their wedding party?
But I wouldn't know
You wouldn't know who's in it?
who they are no more.
Okay.
No.
Well, we'll just put wedding party, and that'll be enough, because that's...
Dad used to tell me once, one lady actually, mother got her education in Devil's Lake. She worked for Dr. Hawking years back, and then she met Dad. I don't know, I can't remember no more how they met. And then
So, are these real flowers that they would use in the weddings, do you know?
or were they made? That I can't answer for sure.
Were they married in the U.S., or were they... Yeah, because
They were married
because your
here.
grandfather immigrated. That's right. Okay, that's right.
They were married here.
That's right. She was born in Devil's Lake. Okay.
Pictures are deceiving, but this was taken on the other side. That's how much snow there was to see the house. And then this here, that's how big the snowbank is over
So
here
when
by
you're
the
up
silo.
close.
But I'm in there, we're not going about it. And here, when we quit making pit silos, we start stacking it upright.
Oh my goodness.
And then we packed it with the little 80A International here. That's a silo pile, silage pile.
Is silage pile?
Silage, yeah. And these are the people you're visiting with when they got married.
That was 97 was your 50th, so that was 47 for the wedding at
October
27,
27, 1947.
October 27, 1947. So when did your mom pass away?
November 2nd, 1942.
So did you ever get to meet her? No.
And Dr. C.G. was the doctor, and he remembered us getting married. And when Diane was born, she was born October 27th, 1950.
Really?
We got married in 47.
Oh my goodness.
3 years to the day.
I do like this picture. This is a really nice picture.
Of me, it's better, but
You look so happy.
Either one.
Just the genuine.
She was glad when I says I do. That's the 25th. Well, we
Of
got
course she
one.
was.
This is my brother that passed away, Mike.
Oh, Mike? Okay.
He would have been my brother, and that was my dad. One of his last pictures.
Tell me order. Is that...
This is Peter.
can't tell by the round face.
You could tell in the
The
baby
round
picture.
face, yeah. He's got a rounder face than Nick has.
Oh, yeah,
And
he
this
does,
is
doesn't
me.
he? Okay. Peter.
And then here again. Peter always up front. He's older.
Is he older?
He tells everybody he's older than I am. He said, how did I go? He kicked me and he says, get out of here. It's too crowded in here. And then I wouldn't go, so he went. That's the way he
So-
explains it.
Suits. Did your mom make those suits for you guys?
No, they were bought.
They were bought?
Yeah.
How'd you like wearing a suit back then?
Oh, we felt stylish.